Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michael Hall, and this is my nonfiction historical video presentation for children's literature. The five books I decided to read for this project are concerning the civil rights movement, but more specifically, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. I definitely recommend these historical nonfiction books as they will provide such a graphic and insightful introduction to children K through 8 about the civil rights movement during 1960s America. Yes, racism and segregation is a controversial and touchy subject to introduce to children, but the topic should be addressed head on and not tiptoed around and ignored because although there is a black president, racism is still alive in today's society. Martin Luther King Jr. is one of the most important influential figures not only in the country, but in the world. And if he were alive today, he would be glad, shocked, and stunned to see what all of his perseverance and hard work has accomplished here in the United States. Children must pay homage to the predecessors and trailblazers before them that sacrificed their lives for the freedom we have today, such as Dr. King himself. And these five books surely do the honor and respect that Martin Luther King Jr. deserves for his nonviolent fight to gain equal rights for African Americans. So here's a review for the first book. The Story of Martin Luther King Jr. by Johnny Ray Moore and illustrated by Amy Wummer. Right off of the bat, I knew this was a picture book by the illustrations and colors of the title on the cover. The book's simplicity in diction and the minute amount of words make this book a great introduction book for children to Dr. King. So I would say the intended age range for this book is 2 to 7 years old, or the preschool to second grade audience. The strengths of the book are its delicate, soft, and innocent use of watercolors to illustrate Dr. King's childhood mostly. What I notice is a descriptive use of colors in the book. Preachers and more are in red, and red has a meaning of passion. Martin Luther King was passionate about his career as a preacher and his Christian faith. He was also a very driven student, and that is what drove his ambitious determination when always doing more than his peers in school. It obviously does not get into the nitty-gritty, graphic, and sometimes grim details of the civil rights movement, and I expect that, as it is only for the beginning reader. Alright, now on to the second book. Free at Last, The Story of Martin Luther King Jr. by Angela Bull. Although this book does contain such detailing pictures, both black and white and color, this book is more for children breaking away from the babyish picture books, such as a previous book, and reading full paragraphs on their own. For that reason, I would recommend this book for children 8 to 10 years old or 3rd to 5th grade. At this stage, they are entering the industry versus inferiority stage of Erikson's theory. At this stage, children desire to achieve success in cooperation with peers, but they also feel inferior and compare themselves to peers as well. I highlight that stage because this book in particular details Martin's own inferior feelings and his own comparisons to fellow civil rights leaders such as Malcolm X of the Black Panthers Party who pushed for violent ways. On a set of pages, the author explains how at first all whites were against civil rights, but as soon as they noticed the cohesiveness of blacks all fighting for the same cause, they started fighting alongside them too. As far as comparison to peers and feelings of inferiority, the book also details Martin's own comparisons against his civil rights peers, such as Malcolm X, but never did he ever doubt his own nonviolent approach, and he ultimately persevered. Alright, well here's the third book. Martin Luther King Jr., A Dream of Hope by Alice Fleming. This book contains a heavy dose of chapters and word length, but even with that, it still contains many useful detailing and informative pictures that help readers gain more understanding to the discussion at hand. From the Freedom Riders to the Watts riots, each event is captured in time with a brilliant picture. Hands down, this is my favorite of the five, but as I said previously, due to the heavy volume of the book, I would recommend this book for the 11 to 13-year-old audience. But the mass amount of intriguing pictures will captivate any child reader. At the ages of 11 to 13, adolescents enter Erik Erikson's identity versus role confusion stage. During this stage, they seek books that show young people struggling with who they are and how to deal with the world of change. This book does a brilliant job of relating to children in that stage by showing in one chapter how Dr. King himself suffered an identity crisis, similar to what adolescents experience at the age of 13. He was accepted into Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia at 15 years old, and although he was a hardworking and intelligent student, he still did not know who he was or what he wanted to do as a career. He chose to be a preacher and civil rights activist, and we can say that he made the right decision. If children can read that even Dr. King himself struggled with role confusion, yet transformed into the amazing person he was, then rest assured they can be assured too that they will too. Next book, book number 4. Martin Luther King Jr., A Photographic Story of Life by Amy Paston. As self-explanatory in the title, this book shares its fair amount of pictures, timelines, tables, and documents that detail the civil rights movement. This book, out of all the books, has the best illustrations and graphics. Its use of descriptive timelines, authentic papers, and definition side boxes are what edged this book ahead of the previous book for graphics. Unlike the previous book, A Dream of Hope, this book does not contain as many pages and as much in-depth diction as well. But with that, it makes up for in illustrations that grab the reader and entice the reader to keep turning the page. Although the graphics are great, there are some graphic pictures and graphic topics, such as lynching and murder, that are discussed in context. With that, I would not recommend this book to younger children audiences, but maybe 10 years old and up. Last but not least, book number 5. Who Was Martin Luther King Jr. by Bonnie Bader and illustrated by Elizabeth Wolfe. What first caught my attention when getting this book was the cover. I mean, the big head is hard to miss. But anyways, the author did accomplish her task by getting my attention. All jokes aside, I was expecting colored illustrations when opening up the book, but my expectations were not met. The illustrations were black and white, and they seemed as if they were sketched. But I can tell still, much effort was still put into it, although the photos were not as elaborate or captivating or attention-grabbing as the previous 4 books. Beside many bios of important figures and events made up for the below par pictures. The book is simple, but gets to the point, and does not get into the complicated political or social issues that 7 or 9-year-olds may not even understand. And with that, I would recommend this book to the younger child reader between the ages of 6 and 9. Well, that's it. That is my historical nonfiction video presentation on the civil rights movement and Martin Luther King Jr. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to view this video, and well, thank you.